So one day, in the not too distant future, I promise, you'll graduate. And when you graduate, you are invited to come and graduate. And by that I mean, you're invited to come to Atlanta and walk across stage just like all the other Georgia Tech graduates for that semester. We don't make any distinction between our online and our on-campus students. You are graduating just like everybody else, and you're invited to come be part of that experience. And because for many of you that becomes your first experience on campus, we tend to offer some other festivities, some dinners or receptions and things like that. And one of the things we've done for the past several semesters is we do a campus tour. And actually, I do the campus tour and I show our graduates around campus. And I always get a kick out of that. I like showing you the school that you've been attending for the past several years. There's something fun about that. In the wake of COVID-19 in 2020, we couldn't do that, obviously. Even the graduations for the in-person, the on-campus students were canceled or delayed. And so what we did was we actually filmed a tour based on old footage, based on some photos that we took on campus and things like that. And we filmed it with the spring 2020 graduates in mind. But now that it's filmed, just like all of our course material and things like that, there's no reason to keep it secret. So I'm now going to add the campus tour into this orientation video because as much as I like showing people the school they've been attending, I think it's probably more fun to show you the school you're about to be attending. You might not be here physically on campus, but you are a Georgia Tech student. This is your campus. This is your university, and we want you to feel at home here. So if you want to watch our tour video, here it is. Welcome. I'm looking forward to showing you our campus. This tour is structured to highlight those things that will be interesting to college of computing students, especially graduate students. We're going to start at the Klaus Advanced Computing Building, and then we'll look at the College of Computing building itself. Then we'll go down the big hill to the Einstein Statue, and then look at the Campanile. We'll stop by the Student Center, then we'll visit the Clough Undergraduate Learning Commons, and then we'll head over to the most iconic Georgia Tech building, the Evans Administration Building, affectionately known as Tech Tower. From then we'll go to the Rosa Parks statue, we'll visit the former site of Junior's Grill, we'll stop by the Georgia Tech Library and then visit the football stadium, and our tour will end at the Global Learning Center in Tech Square. So let's get started. So this is the Klaus Advanced Computing Building. The building was funded by a donation by Christopher Klaus. Klaus attended Georgia Tech in the early 1990s, and then he went on to start a company called Internet Security Systems, or ISS, which was later sold to IBM for $1.3 billion. Now Klaus is involved on campus a good bit. He funds some startup accelerators. He serves on the advisory board for the college as well as some other areas. The building itself was actually built on the site of the old campus health center as well as some empty lots that were here at the time. And construction was actually delayed by the fact that it was unclear who officially owned some of these early empty lots. But once construction started, it progressed pretty quick. The building opened in 2006. My first memory actually of visiting campus was actually seeing the building under construction and it just looking like this giant alien spaceship that had landed because of its long curved side. It was beautiful even under construction. Klaus is home to many of the online faculty you're familiar with. Ada Gavrilovska, Winky Lee, Raheem Bea either have their offices here or until recently had their offices here. Many of our faculty are actually moving over to the Coda building, which is over in Tech Square. So we'll talk about that at the end of the tour. Klaus is also home to one of the two studios we use to film some of our online classes. The College of Computing was officially founded in 1988 when then President Creasing elevated the School of Information and Computer Science to the level of college, taking it out from under the College of Engineering. And elevating it to the college level was a controversial decision, and even today, computer science is still under the engineering department at most major universities. Georgia Tech was actually the first US school to elevate computing to the highest level. Now when I do this tour in person, I say, can anyone tell me what the first school to do that was? And then I pause. And then if no one answers, I say, Carnegie Mellon was actually the first US school to elevate computing to the highest level. And then I'll usually ask, at least as I'm recording this, who is the most recent university to elevate computing to the top level? And if you don't know, the answer is MIT. 30 years after we started our College of Computing, MIT just started their own. So it's nice to see them finally get on the ball after all these years. The College of Computing building is also home to several professors' offices as well, and also Dean Charles Isbell's office is in this building. OMSCS faculty member Mark Moss also has his office here, and the advisors, although they generally work from home, when they come to campus, their desks are here. So a lot of the people you interact with as part of the OMSCS program find their home in the College Computing Building. It's also where most of our undergraduate classes have their office hours, and it's all advisors, most of our undergraduate instructors, so a lot of people call the College Computing Building their home. So here we have the Einstein Statue. It joined the Georgia Tech campus a few years back. It was created by Robert Burks. And in fact, he created 3 Einstein statues. The other 2 are housed at the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C., and at the Israel Academy of Science and Humanities in Jerusalem. The third one actually home of Burke's widow, Dorothy, for years, despite several offers to offer it a home. When Georgia Tech learned it was available, it put together a pitch to house it here on campus. And a big part of that pitch was Georgia Tech's commitment to the arts. Despite being an engineering school, Georgia Tech actually has a long history of supporting artistic endeavors. And in fact, we're the only university in the country that has 2 endowed chairs of poetry. We're also the home to permanent art installations like the Engineered Art exhibit here on campus. And so Dorothy agreed that the statue would fit nicely here. So it came to Georgia Tech in 2015 as a cornerstone of this new beautiful quad area. When I was an undergraduate here, actually, this entire area around the statue was a parking lot for the library. And over the past 10 years, there's been a revitalization effort to really create a center quad on campus, a place that really feels like a college, as opposed to a place embedded in an urban environment like we actually are. So as many of you probably know, Atlanta hosted the Olympics in 1996, and Georgia Tech actually played a big role in that. Our campus recreation center was built to house the swimming exhibitions, boxing events were held in our basketball stadium, athletes actually lived on campus, and the apartment complex built to house the athletes is now a Georgia Tech dormitory. In fact, it's generally recognized that the Atlanta Olympic Games were the last Olympics to have a positive impact on the host city rather than a negative one, because many facilities were constructed with this kind of reuse in mind. Nearly every facility constructed for the Olympics found an ongoing purpose in Atlanta after the games were over. So why am I talking about this here by the Campanile? Well, the Campanile is actually one of the things that was originally built for the Olympics. Inside it are some bells that play the school fight song, and chances are you've actually seen the Campanile before, even if you've never been here. The Georgia Tech logo has a stylized version of the Campanile. Chances are one of you can look around and find a Georgia Tech logo nearby. That part right to the right of Georgia Tech, that's actually stylized to look like the Campanile. So this building here is the Clough Undergraduate Learning Commons. It opened in 2011 and it's named for former Georgia Tech president G. Wayne Clough. Clough was president from 1994 to 2008, presiding over things like the Olympics as well as an explosive growth in Georgia Tech's international reputation. He left in 2008 to become the secretary of the Smithsonian. And if you saw the movie The Internship, this building was actually made up to look like Google's headquarters for the filming of that movie. And if you're active on Georgia Tech's social media, you know that I'm legally required to mention The Internship in a tour of our campus, because we always have to do that. So that brings our tour to probably the most iconic of Georgia Tech buildings. This is Tech Tower, officially known as the Evans Administration Building, but colloquially known as Tech Tower, and it is the iconic symbol of Georgia Tech. It was the second building to be built on campus. The first was a shop building, which has since been torn down. So Tech Tower is now the oldest building on campus. And the iconic Tech signs on the 4 sides were installed in 1918. It's been the site of several historical moments in history. For example, Teddy Roosevelt gave a speech on the importance of engineering education here in 1905. There are also several other monuments around this area. There are, for example, the marble benches that are dedicated to Tech students and alumni who fought and died in World War I. And there's also the headstone of Sideways the dog, who was a beloved stray that lived at Georgia Tech for several years. Now, like I said, today the building is known as the Evans Administration Building. It houses the office of the registrar, the offices of the deans of engineering and of sciences, as well as several other departments for campus. And in fact, the Campanile that we showed before was modeled to be kind of a stylized version of Tech Tower. Tech Tower has the 4 spires in the 4 corners, and Campanile is kind of a compressed version of that. So it was modeled to call to mind the iconic Tech Tower structure. Now, usually at this point, I would ask if anyone knows the tradition of stealing the tea, and typically a couple people will, but most people don't. One of the oldest Georgia Tech traditions that is now completely illegal is attempting to steal the tea from Tech Tower, specifically the one that faces east, which faces the highway that runs next to campus. The first successful theft happened in 1969, and it was stolen again in 1997, and again in 1999. And the one stolen in 1999 was never recovered, and a replacement was installed. Most recently, the north-facing tea was stolen in 2014. And like I said, this prank is now completely forbidden due to the tremendous physical risk it poses. but it does spawn copycats. If you ever make it to campus and walk around, you'll notice that T's are missing from many of the buildings and signs all around campus. When you come to campus, please don't do that. There's only one T that is traditional to steal, and don't steal that one either. But don't steal any T's from campus. It's also not uncommon, though, for tech fans to steal the T's abroad. Most famously, there was a football game in 2006 at NC State, where at some point the camera pans over to the stands and shows that the first T in North Carolina State, had been lifted. But like I said, these are all acts of vandalism, and we do not in any way endorse them. Now, as we know, Georgia Tech is located in the Deep South, which has lagged behind in civil rights throughout history, but Georgia Tech has always been a regional leader. This area right here is named after Edwin Harrison, who was president of Georgia Tech in 1961 when the institute officially desegregated. And in doing so, Georgia Tech became the first university in the South to integrate without a court order. Today, Georgia Tech grants the most engineering degrees to African Americans of any university in the United States. This statue shows Rosa Parks at age 42 when she refused to move to the back of the bus, and at 92 when she passed away. It was designed by local artist Martin Dahl and dedicated in 2018. Behind the Rosa Parks statue is Highland Bakery, but before it was Highland Bakery, it was Junior's Grill, which, if you ask me, is one of the great Georgia Tech institutions. Junior's was run by a man named Tommy Clemmis, who is probably the nicest person who has ever lived. I'm talking Mr. Rogers level nice. It originally was across North Avenue on the other side of the football stadium, but the building was torn down to make room for that Olympic Village. And students petitioned for Junior's to be given a space on campus so it could stay alive after that construction. And so it was housed here for the next 30 years or so. The amount of construction in this area sadly forced the restaurant to finally close. But now Tommy runs Clemmis Kitchen, which is a food pantry for students on campus without consistent access to food. Now here we have the Georgia Tech Library. If you come to campus today, you almost certainly will see a different appearing building because we're actually in the middle of a long renovation of the Georgia Tech Library. First one wing closed, now the other wing closed, and I think we're close to done with it. But it's been a multi-year process, and it's been very interesting to watch because it really has called to mind the question of what is a library in the 21st century when everything is digitized. So many of the library services are now done online, from reading virtual books to requesting shipments and things like that. So many of the traditional library services have been digitized. And so what is a library now? Well, our library is filled with abundant study spaces for students to either meet together with groups or meet individually. It has kind of lab spaces, classroom spaces that can deliver workshops and other kind of targeted skill kind of sessions outside of the context of regular classes, but the kind of skills students need to develop to be part of the 21st century. And so it's been an interesting process because really we're reinventing what a library means for this new digital age. Now, down the hill from the Georgia Tech Library, we have Callaway Plaza, which sits outside the Georgia Tech football stadium. Callaway Plaza was named after Fuller Callaway, who was one of the founders of the Georgia Tech Research Corporation, which is Georgia Tech's big research wing that does a lot of work with government contractors and places like that, and has really been one of Georgia Tech's major strengths to have this more private enterprise to collaborate with our on-campus faculty. Callaway Plaza itself is home to lots of tributes to Georgia Tech's long and storied football tradition. We have the statues of Heisman, who of course is the namesake of the Heisman Trophy, who was a coach here for a long time. We also have the statue of Bobby Dodd, who is the namesake for our football field and is one of the greatest college football coaches of all time, as well as the stadium itself. Now, what you might not know about the stadium is Georgia Tech Stadium is actually the longest consistently used, or the oldest consistently used football stadium among any Division I school. It's been here for over 100 years. It's been renovated several times, and new stands have been built on top of the old ones, which means you can actually look through some windows on the field and see the old stands underneath the new ones. So we've been here for a very long time. I know when I visit some other colleges, it's always a little bit surprising to me to find that for many of the big schools around the area, the football stadium is actually a decent ways off campus. Here, it's right in the middle of campus. It's adjoined by the Greek area with all the fraternity and sorority houses on one side, and many of the freshman dorms on another side. So the stadium really is part of the fabric of campus. Now finally, our tour ends at Tech Square. Tech Square was Georgia Tech's first grand foray across the highway. The Georgia Tech campus is actually bordered on one side by the place where I-85 and I-75 merge right in the middle of downtown Atlanta. And so for a while, it was the eastern border of campus. So campus was bordered on the east by I-75, I-85, and on the south by North Avenue, confusingly enough. Then in the early 2000s, Georgia Tech bought a bunch of land on the other side of the highway and constructed Tech Square, which is this area right here. Tech Square is home to our College of Business now. It's home to the Tech Square Research Building, which is where my faculty partners in the School of Interactive Computing do a lot of their work. And it's also home of the Global Learning Center. Now, the Global Learning Center is the home of Georgia Tech Professional Education. They run the other two MS programs, Analytics and Cybersecurity. They develop the course material for our online MSCS program. And it would have been the home to this year's Learning at Scale conference if, again, everything in the world wasn't happening right now. But Tech Square is really Georgia Tech's step both across the highway in terms of geography, but also step into the new century. It's home to many of our industrial collaborations, and it's home to the brand new CODA building, which was completed just over a year ago as I'm filming this, which is a gorgeous new building on the side of Tech Square, which is home to the world's largest indoor spiral staircase, actually. This entire area has led to a revitalization of the Midtown area, which is now compared to cities like Austin and San Francisco as one of the major tech hubs in the nation. If you do come to campus, Tech Square is also the home of Barnes & Noble, which is where our BuzzCard office is. So if you want to go get a BuzzCard in person, you'll go get it there. But if you haven't heard, you can actually get those online now as well. But if you do come to campus, Tech Square is a fantastic area to explore. It's beautiful. It's always changing. By the time you get here, actually, I believe there will be another new building catty corner to from where I am right now. So it's a great place to visit, even if you come back over the years, because nowhere else on campus, I think, is it changing so fast. So that brings us to the end of our tour. Like I said, Tech Square is constantly changing. The rest of campus is constantly changing. So if you visit, you might find that there are cool things on campus that I didn't mention here. And there might be things I mentioned here that are no longer present either, although I think everything I've talked about is pretty durable. One of the buildings that isn't currently on this tour, though, because I used the in-person tour as a model for this virtual tour, is the Candida Building for Innovative Sustainable Design. It opened about a year ago. It's currently trying to achieve Living Building Challenge 3.1 certification in 2021, which I find fascinating just because it requires it to achieve a certain number of milestones to earn that certification, which include net positive water use and net positive energy use. So it has to both produce more water and more energy that it actually consumes for a certain period of time, over a period of 12 months. So it's the most environmentally advanced educational research facility of its kind in the region. It's just one example of the fascinating new things that are going on campus. So if you visit, I encourage you to look at the things that I've talked about here, but I also encourage you to look around some more, because chances are you'll find lots of cool stuff on campus that isn't currently there as I film this. I always thoroughly enjoy giving these virtual tours. This virtual one isn't going to replace the in-person one that I do. I'm hoping it can help people who aren't able to come to campus to feel more a part of the campus community. Because even though you're online students, you are through and through Georgia Tech students. There's no distinction in any of our systems between an online student and an on-campus student. You're Georgia Tech students, you're Georgia Tech alumni just as much as anyone else is. And I encourage you to think of yourselves that way. You are not just OMSCS or OMS Analytics or OMS Cybersecurity alumni, but you are Georgia Tech graduates, and you should be proud of that fact. So thank you for joining me for this tour, and I hope to meet you in person soon.